All right, three things that made people rich but have gone out of style. Um, as I was looking about ways to develop wealth, I started to realize that attitudes and ways of doing things have changed over time, which we know, but there's been a pretty radical shift in the last 20 years. And so I wanted to go back into some historical things to see what was out there. So let's jump in. Number one, gold, silver, and coins. Yes, even Bitcoin now we have a coin, but when you are looking for fads, not funds, you chase down where you think the next big thing is. Whereas what people used to do 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even 30 and 40 years ago, is we had three things. We had gold, we had silver, and we had coins. Remember the coin jars that your parents or your grandparents had on their jar? We have a coffee can that we've kept in our house. And during COVID, when they wouldn't let you spend coins, I kind of hoarded them because I had a whole big coffee can full of hundreds of dollars in coins that I didn't want to take back to the bank because I was afraid of confiscation. But we understood the value of gold and silver, and we understood that patience over time and little bits accumulated into big bits. I can remember as a kid, we didn't have a lot of money, and neither did any of my friends in the neighborhood. A lot of the people I knew were on food stamps or government assistance of some kind in the little neighborhood where I lived. And I can remember my next door neighbor's dad. We lived in a duplex, and her dad, he had this big beer bottle. It was like 3 foot tall that he would put coins in. And once it would get full, he would take the coins to the bank. I don't know how he carried it. He must have been strong, and turn it in. And you'd always have hundreds of dollars. Now, my mom at the time, to my knowledge, was making about $150 a week at her job. So hundreds of dollars is a lot of money when this was happening. But they knew by taking that pocket change and holding on to it over time, it turned into a lot of money. In fact, my dad and stepmom, we had what was called a fine jar. So if we left a light on, we had to pay a 10-cent fine. They had to pay a 25-cent fine. And then each year when we went on vacation, we would take, and they also just tossed their coins in there. And sometimes we did too. But at the end of the year, we would go on a family vacation somewhere and we would take all the coins back to the bank and we would divide it amongst the four of us. And that was our spending money. And I can remember getting $25 or $35 out of that coin jar and just feeling rich. Well, that means that there was over $100 in that coin jar just from little bits from a couple kids and Dad and Brenda. And so little bits over time, people have forgotten the value of that. And also collecting coins. You can go to a coin shop and the coins that grandma and grandpa had in their pockets in the 1950s are now being sold for $5, $10, $20. They were worth 50 cents or a dollar back then. But they kept their coins that their parents and grandparents gave them as something that they wanted to pass along. They saw value in money. And now we just toss it. We use a debit card, we tap, we do an app on our phone. But not physically holding it, I think, makes us devalue it. They understood the value of money. So one of the things that has gone out of style but made us rich is understanding the true value of money and what real money is. Number two, build up a little bit at a time. Like I was saying with the coin jars, there was also yard sales, packing lunches, doing little extra tasks and errands. I remember I used to do this door-to-door sales thing that was available for kids by mail. And they would send you this packet with this magazine, and you could go door to door, and each item that you sold, you got $1 profit. And so I was like, if I sold 20 things, I would get $20. Well, at the time, I only got $1 a week for allowance, so that was a tremendous amount of money to me. But people would think of little things they could do. They would take their bottles and cans back. They would collect scrap metal. And in my area, I live in a rural area, and there's a lot of people that still do that kind of stuff now for fundraisers because they learned the value of building a little over time. You've got farmers out here who know the value of patience and planting a seed and gathering things up and how things grow. So we've forgotten a little bit of that. How can you apply that into your life? What are little things you have around you that you could be using to get a little bit of extra to put aside to do something bigger with? Number three, play the long game. So remember, building wealth takes time. You don't graduate from high school and become a millionaire. Daily tasks, weekly goals, yearly progress. That goes in reverse as well. Where do you want to be in a year? So what do you have to accomplish each week? And so, what do you have to do today? When you break it down into little manageable pieces, you obligate yourself today to do the parts that a year from now will give you the return. If you don't, you're going to procrastinate and try to smash it all in, and it won't work. In high school, we realized that careers take time and planning and preparation. And so we look at what classes do I need in order to graduate? Where do I want to go to college? What are the requirements? What kind of scores do I need on my tests? And we do all these things, but then we become adults and we think it's all going to happen instantly. And that's not the reality. That's not how things work. So playing the long game and thinking about where you're trying to be is one of the things that made people rich in the past. They had a family goal. They were working towards something, and each day they did something to get closer to that goal. And if you look at the long game and do the little bits and understand what true wealth is, you won't pee away your money on every little thing that pops up in front of you. You'll say no to the impulse buying the candy bar in the checkout lane. Instead, you'll remember that that dollar not spent today over the course of a year is $50, which you can do something sizable with. You can buy a couple of silver coins right now with that, including the premiums. And it can increase or decrease in value over time, but it's something real that you can pass on. You can put little bits aside and build up a silver coin every year. And in 10 years, you've got a considerable investment. You maybe can buy some gold, things like that. But look at the types of things that your grandparents and great-grandparents talked about that made people rich, and go back to some of the older stories. Go to your library and get books made with paper published in the 50s and see what they were saying then, and see if you can't find some nuggets of things that are forgotten wisdom that will give you the edge. All right, I hope you got something out of this. I would love to hear what you thought in your comments and topics you'd like to talk about, but we're going to be talking about wealth and wealth building and things that prevent us over the next few videos. And so I really hope that you'll invite your friends and share these so that we can start to get ready for what's coming together.